Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of the Disky Chicks podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Martha Forlines, and we are excited to introduce to you a special guest today. David Sillick, who lives in Jacksonville, Florida, is visiting with us today. And David, I'll just start off by welcoming you to the program.
Thank you very much, Cindy and Martha. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here with you.
Excellent. So, David, we have your bio. I know you personally. Martha does not, although we talked a little bit about before the show. And the name of your organization is called TAB. And can you explain to our millions of listeners what TAB stands for and kind of what the organization does?
Certainly. TAB stands for...
For those of you who are not watching video, he's
the alternative board.
The alternative board. What is that?
The alternative board is a 30-plus-year-old organization. It's a franchise based out of Denver, Colorado, and it is a peer advisory service that brings together CEOs, business owners that have common interest in trying to grow their business and have more free personal time. Oftentimes our members are somewhere in the stage of thinking about an exit strategy, or they're younger entrepreneurs and they're not thinking about exit yet, but they're thinking about what's next and how do I scale and grow this business. So that's part of it, is the dynamic of the peer advisory, where shared wisdom equals shared success.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that we do, really three pieces. Another piece that we do is one-on-one coaching. So our business owners get a certified business coach assigned to them, and we do monthly one-on-one coaching sessions. And we set objectives, we set quarterly goals, next steps, we tie them back to their annual plans, and largely help hold them accountable, as do their peers on their advisory board. So when they say they're going to do something, not only does their facilitator and coach try to hold them accountable to where are you on that, what's next, how'd that turn out, but in the board meetings that we hold on a monthly basis, their peers also help hold them accountable for what they said they wanted to accomplish or changes they wanted to make. And then the third part is another piece that we call StrapPro. And a lot of people are familiar with EOS, a process created by the book that Gino Wickman wrote. TAB developed their own process called StrapPro. It's very EOS-like. There are similarities in a lot of respects, and there are differences. I personally think EOS does a couple of things a little bit better than StrapPro, and I think StrapPro does some things a little bit better than EOS. I particularly like the alignment piece of StrapPro, but it's a series of workshops that a business owner will engage with our certified facilitator, and our StrapPro facilitators are fully trained as well. We go through a very rigorous training process, and we conduct monthly workshops with our senior leadership team to take them through that process, and ultimately ends up in a better run organization, an organization that has better understanding of one another, and holds each other accountable and gets the right butts in the right seats.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm sorry. Well, it just sounds like such a powerful model, especially when I think, David, of you working with some young startups and having that depth of knowledge that you have, and some of the other more experienced, I won't say older, members have, because they need that. They really need that level of accountability and training to be effective at all the different roles that they have as president of their business or owner of the business. That's great.
You'd be surprised. I certainly was.
Yeah.
Even the more seasoned business owners you know, they may have started out as that young entrepreneur and they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't look at their financials on a regular basis. They don't establish KPIs that are meaningful and tie back to real objectives. And then I've coached young entrepreneurs that are in their, late 20s, early 30s even, and they're growing fast businesses, and they get started off on that right foot, understanding their financials, and some just naturally look at it. I think it probably has a little bit to do with their DISC profile.
A lot, probably.
But it's interesting to see you would think somebody that's running a $20 million company and they've been successful at it for 15, 20 years, that they've got all those fundamentals in place. And it's just really oftentimes not the case. They have grown it through hard work, being at the right place at the right time, making good decisions, they value our service, I think, as much as anybody.
Yeah, that's great.
I have sat in on many a TAB board meeting, and another thing these businesses have in common is that they don't have a board of directors. So it's lonely at the top. That's kind of the motto of TAB, is that you can only say so much to your spouse or to your number two before they get tired of it, or you may not want your number two to know a lot of things that you're struggling with. And so it is lonely at the top, and they get in a confidential situation in these board meetings without competitors. It's very intentional who sits around this board, and what is a struggle for somebody has already been done and is easy for another business owner. And they go, why don't you try this? So there's a lot of exchange of information. And then that same, confused board member will have excellent advice for another board member when they bring up their issue and challenge. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and that TAB is worldwide. So for all you listening out there, you don't have to be in Jacksonville, but if you need a business owner, and that's who we're trying to reach, especially in season 5, are more strategic use of DISC and things that will improve your business. So look for a TAB chapter.
TAB's in 25 countries, 250 plus markets. The two gorillas really in this peer advisory space, if you will, interestingly enough, both started out of Denver. One is TAB, which is a franchise model, and the other is Vistage. And a lot of people understand what Vistage is. There's differences in the delivery, but the bottom line is it's about that peer advisory, that accountability, that one-on-one coaching.
Yeah. That's very valuable. Very valuable. Well, so you're a user of DISC. How did you get introduced to DISC, David?
July or August of 1995.
Okay.
Wow, how specific was that?
Yeah, I love it. I see.
My first, probably second, but real first significant promotion to another market was when I moved from director of advertising at a business journal in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, to a much larger market, one of our largest markets in the country, the Washington Business Journal in Washington, D.C. And one of the first things that my publisher there wanted me to do was do a DISC assessment. And I remember doing that DISC assessment, and I was at a young age, was taking on a great deal of responsibility in a very large market at a fairly young age. And I think I learned a lot from reflecting on my own DISC profile. I was a really, really high D over just about anything else. It was a D over I, but I was very much of a very hard driver, and I think it might be because of the amount of success and responsibility that I had been granted and given and achieved at a pretty young age. Had to act maybe a little older than what I actually was intellectually. Here I am sitting in front of business owners of very large companies, developers, contract, very large real estate and construction companies, and had to build a relationship with them and earn their trust and respect through what I knew about the business and what I could learn about their business. So that was my first exposure to DISC, and really the company I worked for, American City Business Journals, which I retired from about 5 years ago. We embraced behavioral assessments and 360s, and our chairman and CEO Ray Shaw had retired young at 55 as the president of Dow Jones. Ran the Wall Street Journal actually started as a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, worked his way all the way up to president and publisher. And he was my mentor. He was really who gave me the chance at a very young age to excel in the company. And Ray believed in it. And it was largely about bottom line, understanding strengths. We engaged with the Gallup organization early in my career, and really adopted what Gallup did in behavioral assessments, and which is similar. I think it is. I like DISC because it's simple. It's 4. Clifton Strength Finder is what is known now, has 32 talent sets, I think. But I became a firm believer in it. I was fortunate enough to go through the Gallup Leadership Institute at a young age and have, as I say, have the little chip implanted in the back of my head. And every year or two they'd come in and tighten it up or loosen it or tweak it a little bit. But I really believe in the value of behavioral assessments. So didn't use DISC that long stretch of time, 20 plus years. Really used Gallup in the Strength Finders, and was trained the trainer. I was trained on the screening process. I did a lot of hiring, a lot of coaching in my career, from running one of the largest advertising departments in the country within the company, to then having the opportunity to be president and publisher in Jacksonville, Florida. Again, at a very young age. I was the youngest publisher put in that position at the time, and
So
I had developed a little bit of a reputation as a turnaround specialist. So
when you fast forwarded, if you fast forward to when you started working with TAB, and all of a sudden DISC shows back up, what was that like to go, oh, my old friend DISC, I remember you?
Oh, I as soon as I went to training in Denver, we did a DISC, and I pulled out my old DISC profile. I mean, like I said, I remember it was July or August of 1995, and I pulled it out of my drawer and looked at it, and realized that, like I said, I was still pretty high DI, but my I had overtaken my D, and I attributed that to maybe mellowing a little bit over the years.
Yeah, retirement. Do you think maybe retiring did that to you?
No, I think I became more of a high I just because of the nature of the business.
Absolutely.
Our business changed a lot from news and content to adding, obviously adding the digital component to it, but to events and connecting people. And I mean, we were running 20 plus events a year. So you had to be on stage. I mean, I was literally on stage, facilitating a discussion or moderating emceeing, if you will, an awards program on twice a month. So you develop that skill, and I think that I certainly think that raised that eye a little bit.
And now every time you get a new member for TAB, that member is given the DISC and driving forces, and TAB happens to use the same assessments through TTI that we use. So
Yes.
the verbiage is the same, language is the same. And I was super excited when I saw that. So, I think from what I know about you, David, your appreciation for these assessments with these TAB clients is growing every day, and you're seeing ways that you can use it not only with them, but perhaps their teams. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I think the one of the most valuable pieces, and again, I reflect back on this, and I hope you don't mind me bringing up my experience with Gallup, but in addition to the assessment, the real value is having a professional that understands it, sit in front of you and interpret it, and walk you through it, and understand what that big D means, or what that lower C means, and how you interact with other people on your senior leadership team. The real value is when that business owner says, I want to do this with my COO, my CFO, my admin, my sales manager, and their full senior leadership team, so they understand one another. And that's where the trained facilitation and y'all's expertise and working through that, and really coaching them through that, because you can't just read the report and go, oh. I mean, a lot of people do read the report and go, oh yeah, that's not me, or yeah, that hits me right away, and they stick it in a drawer and they never use it again. And they never I don't want to say change, because people really fundamentally don't change, but they change their awareness of themselves and others. And that's where I think that's where the DISC is really valuable, and we do it right off the bat. It is the very first coaching session when we onboard a new member. They take, as soon as they sign their membership application and join, they immediately get the DISC assessment. And the very first coaching session is extended. It's a little longer than most. And that's because we carve out that time to really review the DISC profile.
Yeah. Well, and the application of it, just like any training program, if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of a thing. So those people that really buy into the power of DISC apply it immediately. I have a new client that I am just amazed, because they're so young, at how they are applying it on the job as quickly as they are. They're like a sponge. And I know you're happy when you see that too.
I've had husband and wife teams go, or, business owners go, can I get one of those from my wife or my husband? And then I end up on a call with both of them, and you're
marital counseling.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And just to be very clear, I am not a psychologist or marital counselor, but often wear the hat of one.
Yeah.
I love supporting David in this effort, because they've labeled me the DISC guru. And so when I'm listening to some of these discussions that these business owners are having, and especially if it's about people or HR stuff, I'm quick to point out, well, it sounds like he's just a D. It's not that he's, and they forget, they think somebody's being a bully or something like that. And I was like, check your DISC, because that could explain a lot of it. A lot of times the high steadies will internalize a D's behavior as being angry with them or upset with them or not liking them. And they never say hello or ask about my weekend. And it's like, it's not you, it's them. And this is what they do. Just give them what they ask for, and, they'll be happy. And you'll be fine.
Yeah. I had a great manager that worked for me, very successful. And she was a tremendous compliment to me. She was a really high I. She was a D, but had that activator chip, and that ability to recognize others, and would come up with little contests and games and awards and things for her staff. And I was, like I said, a high D. I would come in and I'd sit down and here's what needs to, where you at? And she go, well, good morning to you too. and and that was her sign to me going, or she would say she had two things that she would do. She'd say, well, good morning to you too. Or she would say, my, aren't we highly focused today? And that was her signal to me of, step back, put your eye on a little bit, tone down your D, pick up your eye a little bit, ask somebody how they're doing, and then get to business.
Yeah. Well, tell us some of your biggest success stories that you've used with your TAB members over the last years, especially maybe even during COVID, right? So,
yeah, like I said, I think some of them actually, when they embrace it and they want to do it across their senior leadership team, they'll print out their graph and stick it on their door. In fact, TAB's written protocol for board meetings is to have a name card. To have a name card.
Yeah.
That on the front that everybody sees. We all know each other's names because we've been working together for a long time. But the graph is a reminder of, kind of who we are. And then the back side of it is the little cheat sheet as to what each one of the D, I, S, and C stands for. And we used these in the beginning. They sat in front of everybody. And I realized just this week when we had our TAB board meeting, we had a new member join us. First new member we've had into this group really in well over a year. And he had just done his DISC assessment, had never done one before. A more seasoned professional of 60, has a son in the business and is looking at, exiting as he transitions and turning the business over to a son. But I realize, we need to go back to those name cards so that everybody understands each other. Because I know Scott's a really, really high C, and he's now in a room with a lot of really high D's. And as Cindy said, it's important to understand each other, and that's why that is an important part of the TAB protocol, is doing the DISC and having those name cards. And we've gotten away from it largely because everybody got to know each other so well. But I realize how important that is to when we bring a new member in to do that.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder. What a gift to give that person to be able to know, okay, here's what I can expect. Using those name cards around a table, I think, or just knowing everybody's style, I think is equally important for the high steadies, because the high steadies and to some extent the high compliant, they are not ones to interject, interrupt, make themselves heard in a meeting. They are reflective, they're taking everything in, but most of the time I found they have the right answer. Because they're paying attention and not just trying to hear themselves speak, but unless they are asked or invited to speak, they'll just quietly stay there and, they'll take their toys and go home if they're not called on. So I beg my D's and I's to remember, they're frustrated because S's don't talk, but once they understand why, they learn now to kind of go around the room and get input from everybody. Because once invited to speak, I found that the steadies and the compliance have wonderful things to say and an intuition that, or an insight that other people just don't have because they're too busy talking.
That I'm glad you brought that up, because it did remind me of when I first started 5+ years ago, a little over 5 years ago now, in my semi-retirement, started working with TAB. And one of my first board meetings, probably after 5 or 6 of them, we have a member in the group that's still in the group, Steve, and is really high D. And we had another member in the group that was is a really high C. And for several months, he kept having the same issue. And his board kept saying, well, you say this is what you're going to do, but then you come back next month and you don't do it. And finally, I remember the high D just went, would you just stop? Just go back and get it done, and he was overanalyzing it. It was constantly every month.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking another look at this. And so you saw this dynamic between the D and the C really come together. And that's an experience that I remember that really resonated with me.
Yeah. Yes. Cindy and I have gone over that behavior style matching, and the D and the C are probably the worst. They have the least amount of overlap with one another of all the styles. So you saw that like up close and personal.
Firsthand. And that, and I'm a big believer in behavioral assessment. So
Yeah.
I was really, it just reinforced that I'd made the right decision. And that TAB's protocols and use of the DISC assessments is such an important part of not only that onboarding of new members, but that effective communication and understanding of each other in board meetings.
Yeah. My question for you is kind of my philosophy is, as leaders, if you don't know yourself, you just can't be an effective leader of others. And do you see that being embraced by your TAB members and owners of the business?
Absolutely. I've been working with a business owner of a very large construction company for over 3 years now. And he doesn't attend board meetings. He just sees the value in the one-on-ones. And this time last year, we were meeting and he was having his offsite annual retreat. And Cindy helped me pick up some of the pieces. There was another consultant that came in and did DISC profiles, but he wanted me to come in and lead a workshop during their offsite retreat with their senior leadership team. And there were people that were new onto the team, didn't really buy in to this. And the business owner said, I need you to come in and get them to understand why these behavioral assessments are so important to the growth of our company. And he understood his, and it was interesting because he's a really, really high D. And it was, I need you to come in and get everybody in line.
Learn it, embrace it right now.
Right. And I did. I went through and I did the workshop, and it was around alignment. It was around understanding DISC, understanding each other's DISC assessments. I did those table tent cards for everybody. And passed them out. They all knew each other's names, but they didn't understand each other's DISC profile. Cindy did a team wheel for me, and I went through and explained that. And she is the DISC ninja. I'm a low brown belt when it comes to understanding DISC. And it was funny. He wanted me to do it before the end of their offsite retreat, because the end of their offsite retreat is their Festivus moment, airing of grievances.
I know.
Oh my.
And that's where everybody, and of course, you got a business owner that's really high D. Are people really going to air their grievances in an open and honest manner? So the workshop preceded that piece of it. And I did the whole communication charter, which is part of our StrapPro. And so they understand each other's DISC. Then we did this whole communication exercise and a communication charter, and a safe word comes out of that exercise. And the one person that the business owner was most concerned about not buying into this was the one that embraced it the most, came up with the suggested safe word, and the safe word was rojo. So rojo, red in Spanish, I think.
It is.
And so they they used that as they were going through, and as little as just a few months ago, they still use it in meetings.
So if
Oh,
things
They
start to
still,
bubble up and get tense, somebody can
right,
throw that word out and everybody needs to chill. Is that
exactly,
okay?
exactly. That's that safe word that somebody's not understanding or respecting your C-ness,
Yeah.
right? And somebody else in the room will just go, Rojo.
Do they have a red flag they throw down on the table?
I understand they've actually used it in client meetings, and
Well,
the
it's a
client
good
has no
code
idea.
too. Yeah.
The client has no idea. All of a sudden, all of a sudden, Rojo comes out of nowhere.
Rojo is my favorite color.
Oh,
That's a great tip, and I know just from StrapPro that's one of the modules, the communications module alignment. And there's a whole process for putting together this communications charter. You kind of make up the rules. It's like the ground rules before you facilitate a big meeting. We're not going to do this. We agree to do that. And then,
right.
but not everyone, and this is the only place I've seen the whole, safe word concept of just don't ask questions, just stop what you're doing. I think in a client meeting, it's a great thing to have, because somebody could be
Instead of
on the
kicking
verge of
somebody under
saying
the
something
table,
they're
right?
not supposed to,
Yeah.
or
Right.
divulging some information, and they get rohoed or whatever,
Right.
whatever that would be.
It's the equivalent of kicking somebody under the table right in the shin.
Yes.
Exactly.
And if you can't reach them,
Exactly.
you need a word. I love
Yeah.
it. David, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing those. One thing that you said and I don't know if I have the whole analogy, but when you were talking about the D saying just do it, there's an analogy of ready, aim, fire for each one of the styles. And I think the D is just fire, 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 and the C is ready, aim, 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 aim. That's exactly what they were doing, and I think
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what that. Oh, and I think the S is like
Yeah, it was
ready, 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 ready. Like they're never, they're never ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And
And thank
I
you.
use, and I use, and I don't know, I'm curious in the professional's feedback here. I describe the D, the I, the S, and the C with these adjectives. The D is the driver. Go, 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 go. Shoot first, ask questions later.
Right.
Get it done, get it done, get it done. The I is the influencer. That's your salesperson. That's your social butterfly. The influencer. The S I call the satisfier. That's your HR person. Can't everybody just get along? Wouldn't the world be a much better place if we all just got along?
Kindness.
Right.
Kindness.
And the C is your clarifier. That's your accountant.
Yeah.
The one that wants to measure and look at everything, and will often get into paralysis through analysis.
Right.
And that's my kind of DISC description.
Yeah.
I don't know that the adjectives line up exactly with what TTI calls them, but that's how I've described it for years. And I'm curious if that's accurate, if I should change any of that.
I mean, I don't think so. I think that, especially with that steady, and as a high D myself, I've had to really learn to appreciate those steadies. So, and a lot of people discount the value, and that's all wrong, because a steady balances me out. A compliant really balances me out, and honoring the differences and accepting that we're all wired so uniquely different, for good reason, because that team is way more robust when they can get to that point of total acceptance of those differences. So I think those are great descriptors.
If you want the official words, it is driver and influencer. That is, or sometimes D is dominant. And DISC is not a trademarked. Nobody owns that knowledge. So you'll see different. The first DISC that you took, you may see some changes because it may be a different company that did it. Some call them driver, some call them dominant, but TTI is dominant. Influencer, steadiness is the S. And then C is compliance. They want to know what the rules are so they can follow them and benchmark their process. When there are no rules, they don't know where to go,
Right.
So
good. Good. Thanks, Cindy.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, once again,
Martha,
thank you so
Cindy,
much for
thank you
being
so
on the
much.
Disky Chicks. And if you're, listening at home, you can go to diskychicks.com and we will have all the links to the audio and the visual, or you can go straight to Spotify or Apple to hear the audio. You can go to Disky Chicks Podcast on Facebook, see the video, and then also we have a YouTube channel too. Just Google Disky Chicks Podcast.
So many choices. So many
I
choices.
know. You can drive and listen, you can walk and listen, you can sit on your couch and watch. So,
Yeah.
all right, everyone have a great day. Thanks again, David, and we look forward to seeing everybody again.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye.
David.